Welcome to the city of Coral Gables, the city beautiful. It is my distinct pleasure and indeed honor to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. My name is Beatriz Rangel, and I am a board member of the Inter-American Institute for Democracy, one of the sponsoring institutions, and a beneficiary of Maurice Ferre's leadership. Please rise in order to honor our national anthem in a rendition by violinist Daniela Padron. Thank you, Daniela. Please sit. Carlos Alberto Montaner perhaps is the most insightful writer in our Hispanic culture. His life has been a continuing proclamation of the ingenuity, the inventiveness, and the creativity of the Hispanic people. With over 30 publications, he's one of the most prolific authors. His work covered the saga of the Cuban people, but also the unending fight for freedom staged by citizens of Latin America in their territory and wherever they settle. Carlos Alberto has lived in Miami for at least 3 decades, and as a citizen of Miami, he values good leadership and has learned to appreciate the gifts that accrue from wisdom and flawless execution. As we reminisce over Maurice Ferre's tenure as mayor of Miami, Carlos Alberto reminds us of the kind of city that Miami was before the notion of the gateway took hold. Carlos Alberto, please.
Aquí es cuestión de botoncito. A ver, ahora sí. Muy bien. Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Beatriz. Me da mucho gusto participar en este merecidísimo homenaje a mi admirado Maurice Ferre, exalcalde de Miami entre 1973 y 1985. Beatriz Rangel, de la dirección del Inter-American Institute for Democracy, me ha asignado el tema de esta brevísima charla. Miami, antes de ser la ciudad que es, antes de ser una de las puertas de las Américas. No creo que la tarea abarque el pasado precolombino, porque hay algunos rastros visibles en Brickell junto al río, pero no existen indicios de que existiera nada más allá de algunos caseríos dispersos atribuidos a los tequestas. De alguna manera, Beatrice me ha pedido que hable de Miami antes de Maurice Ferre, el primer alcalde hispano de esta ciudad, hoy tan variada y tan diferente, que muchos estadounidenses la califican como la ciudad más cercana a Estados Unidos. Naturalmente, la complaceré, pero antes quiero hacer algunas precisiones sobre este valioso personaje que hoy justamente homenajeamos. Ferre, como todos sabemos, nació en Ponce, Puerto Rico, en el seno de una familia con antepasados cubanos. Pero estudió en Estados Unidos, domina el inglés perfectamente y con el manejo total de esa lengua se apoderó de las claves y los mitos de la cultura americana. Eso tiene mucha importancia. Maurice Ferre no solo es bilingüe, es bicultural. Cuando lo califican de hispano, quienes lo hacen están dejando fuera el componente estadounidense, que es tan vital en esta figura. De alguna manera, sin advertirlo, lo castigan por ese factor extra que posee. Tal vez por eso los estrategas que aconsejaron a Mitt Romney en las elecciones contra Barack Obama le advirtieron que no pusiera ningún énfasis en decir que hablaba muy bien el francés, porque eso podía costarle algunos votos. De la misma manera que casi nadie sabe que Barack Obama aprendió el indonesio cuando estudió en ese país siendo un niño. La cultura norteamericana, definida por el mainstream, es militantemente monolingüe y monocultural, aunque la Constitución tenga la cortesía de no plantear esos temas escabrosos. Me es muy fácil entender este asunto. Tengo un hermano menor, llamado Alex Roberto, médico, cuyo fenotipo responde al estereotipo del estadounidense clásico. Es rubio, tiene los ojos verdes y habla el inglés sin acento porque llegó a Estados Unidos a los 9 años. Nuestra madre, a principios de los 60, se casó con un norteamericano, Dave Wyville, y Alex y ella se fueron a vivir a West Palm Beach, a su nuevo hogar, donde entonces apenas había hispanos. Los compañeros de Alex en la escuela lo trataban como a un estadounidense más. Les resultaba muy familiar, su identidad era la misma. Pero un día, algunos compañeros suyos fueron a estudiar a su casa y descubrieron que el hogar de Alex era diferente. Nuestra madre, cuyo fenotipo era el de Alex, rubia y ojiverde, apenas sabía inglés y tenía la extraña costumbre de freír los plátanos y comer arroz con frijoles negros. Los compañeros de Alex automáticamente lo clasificaron como un hispano. Mentalmente, para ellos, dejó de ser un estadounidense convencional. Había un costo extra por la cultura que aportaba. Y ese es el caso de Maurice Ferre. Exhibe una identidad compleja, perfecta para entender una sociedad variada como la que se ha desarrollado en Miami, esencialmente conformada por personas procedentes en gran medida de América Latina. Y ahora hablemos del viejo Miami, cuando era una soñolienta sociedad del sur de la Florida. Así la conocí yo en 1961 cuando salí de Cuba, y no me impresionó demasiado. Entonces el alcalde era Robert King High, un abogado prematuramente muerto en 1967. Fue 10 años alcalde de esta ciudad. Hasta entonces, casi todos los alcaldes, o todos probablemente, habían pertenecido al establishment y la ciudad tenía el sello invisible de Made in USA. Pero el azar y la Guerra Fría primero trajeron un aluvión de cubanos que llegamos provisionalmente con el objeto de regresar a la isla tan pronto pudieran. Como todos, yo pensaba que era cuestión de meses o de un par de años. Nos resultaba inconcebible que Estados Unidos, que pocos años antes había ido a Corea, a miles de kilómetros, a evitar que los comunistas se apoderaran del sur de esa península, y habían dejado 30.000 soldados muertos en ese esfuerzo, permitiera que en su frontera sur, a solo 90 millas, la Unión Soviética colocara un satélite antiamericano irreprimiblemente agresivo. Realmente era insólito. No los abrumaré con esa conocida historia, pero lo que sería una estancia provisional se fue haciendo permanente y los cubanos retomaron sus vidas profesionales y fueron poco a poco echando las bases de su propia prosperidad. Decía el humorista Álvaro de Villa, con admiración, que Miami era como una Habana de poliéster, y los cubanos rápidamente alegan que es gracias a ellos que la ciudad floreció, pero no es exactamente así. Sin las instituciones americanas, sin la ley y el orden, sin la educación impartida en las escuelas y universidades, sin el sustrato, perdón, una tos alérgica muy desagradable, sin el sustrato dejado por las generaciones anteriores, nada de eso hubiera sido posible. Es decir, la tradición cívica americana ha permitido que los cubanos, nicaragüenses, colombianos, argentinos, haitianos, brasileños y últimamente los venezolanos, cada grupo víctima de sus propios demonios, puedan encajar e integrarse en este extraordinario país. Eso le ha conferido un sello hispano a la ciudad muy agradable para el recién llegado de América Latina, pero acaso un tanto incómodo para los nativos norteamericanos. Hace 30 años adquirí un apartamento en un condominio de Brickell. Entonces, apenas un 10% éramos extranjeros y el 90% era estadounidense. Hoy la proporción es a la inversa. Este Miami que hoy disfrutamos, y pregunto, ¿será permanentemente una ciudad bilingüe y predominantemente hispana? No necesariamente. Durante muchos años será así, pero el entorno de las ciudades cambia por las circunstancias demográficas, los avatares políticos y los desarrollos tecnológicos. Sin el aire acondicionado que dominó el tórrido clima, sin la Guerra Fría y sin los fracasos sociales y políticos de América Latina, el sur de la Florida sería otra cosa. Y resumo para concluir. En 1973 ocurrió un extraordinario acontecimiento. Maurice Ferre fue el primer alcalde hispano de Miami. Era el momento, y fue afortunado que le tocara a él. Demostró que los hispanos podíamos ser tan capaces como los anglos, y su desempeño fue admirable. A partir de su alcaldía, todos los alcaldes, menos uno, Steve Clark, han sido hispanos. Dejó una gran impronta y fue un magnífico ejemplo que hoy todos celebramos. Muchas gracias.
Can change our life for the best. Miami and all of us have been blessed by the leadership of Maurice Ferre. And now let's share in the enlightened vision that inspired Maurice Ferre to bring to Miami the transformative power of hemispheric trade and cosmopolitan culture. Few people have been blessed by destiny with the realization of their leadership goal while they are alive. Maurice Ferre is one such person, and we shall see in this video, masterfully produced by Luis Leonel Leon, how his vision changed our city, our culture, and our future. The video, a dream comes true. Please roll it.
Great dreams have been the cornerstone to great cities. Paris or Lutetia emerged from the dream of freedom by the Gauls that for years resisted Roman domination. The promise of trade built the pillars of New York City, which was the very first capital of the United States. Miami, the modern, global, and thriving city that is the gateway to the Americas, was dreamt by one of the most innovative leaders of the Hispanic community. Maurice Ferre inherited the creative drive of his French ancestors who brought metallurgy to Cuba and then to Puerto Rico and used the trade to improve agricultural production. Born into a family of landowners and traders, Maurice Ferre was raised in the global dimension even before the concept of globalism existed. At the age of 8, he visited Miami on board of a seaplane from Pan Am that had made previous stopovers in Havana and Kingston. New York was his mother's birthplace, and from a very young age he was attracted by the city's energetic charge and boundless capacity to reinvent itself. He aspired to be an architect, but ended studying engineering and finance. He came to Miami to be with his mother temporarily and settled forever, as Miami became the location of his two greatest lifelong passions, Mercedes, his wife, and the dream of establishing Miami as a gateway to the Americas. Miami had to become the meeting place to the best of modernity and the best of tradition, to the best of the Anglo-Saxon culture and the best of the Hispanic culture, and to the best dreams of people from the hemisphere that by design or accident called the city home. Graduating from UM was the launching board to a successful career in real estate that was followed by public service. Real estate opened to the young Maurice the secrets of urban planning. Planting the foundations for the gateway brought him to City Hall. He kept that mailing address for 6 terms, and when he left, the city was stronger, more beautiful, and cosmopolitan. He had focused on 3 tasks. First, Maurice increased the proportion of commercial real estate from 35% to 60% as means to provide the city with enough resources to finance service demands by citizens. The gateway then took off, as the area was transformed into a center for inter-American trade, banking, and commerce. This newly acquired status was codified by King Juan Carlos of Spain when he told Maurice, "I was mesmerized by Miami's development. It is the virtual capital of the Americas without having its institutions." He continues to serve because he believes that the best is yet to come, as he thinks that Miami is like a butterfly or a caterpillar, goes from one form to another. It's transformed many times. It's an ongoing transformation that occurs continuously, changes, and evolves. Surely, Miami's current personality is evolving into a technology-focused cocoon. And to Maurice, this new incarnation will displace Silicon Valley as an innovation hub for the Americas. Just as Miami competes with New York as the center of banking, trade, and entertainment for the Americas, it will soon become an innovation magnet, and Maurice Ferre is ready to be a part of this new incarnation in the city that he has cuddled his greatest affection.
Thank you, Luis Leonel, for this truly touching documentary on the coming about of one of the greatest dreams to originate in South Florida through the vision and passion for public service of Maurice Ferre. This vision, dedication, and love for the city are now to be recognized by the Inter-American Institute for Democracy through the granting of the Caballero de la República Award, which will be presented by Carlos Sánchez Berzaín, the Institute's Executive Director. Okay.
Querido Maurice, estimado alcalde, distinguido presidente, distinguida familia de Maurice Ferre, directores del Inter-American Institute, doctor Lustó, embajador Valladares. Como ustedes conocen, el Inter-American Institute for Democracy es una entidad de los Estados Unidos asentada en Miami, creada para la promoción y defensa de la libertad, la democracia, los derechos humanos y la institucionalidad. Está integrada por voluntarios, por gente destacada de todas las Américas, y uno de los pilares fundamentales del arranque y el éxito de nuestro instituto está hoy aquí presente, siendo objeto de este homenaje. Es Maurice Ferre. conocido por todos ustedes como el gran alcalde de Miami, pero por nosotros, en la defensa de la libertad y la democracia, como el hombre de principios, como el visionario, como el ser humano, como el humanista que observa con gran perspectiva el futuro y que nos ha ayudado a consolidar y a llevar adelante este esfuerzo que se ha expandido por todas las Américas y que ya tiene más de 10 años. El Inter-American Institute for Democracy tiene una distinción especial para la gente que así se destaca, y este es el primer caso en el que la otorga a uno de sus miembros, que es a Maurice Ferre, y es el reconocimiento República, otorgado a don Maurice Ferre con la Orden del Caballero de la República por sus destacados aportes y sacrificios en pro de la convivencia y su trabajo ejemplar a favor de la libertad y la democracia. Voy a nombre del Instituto, del presidente, los directores aquí presentes, del alcalde Valdés Fauli, que también es miembro de nuestro directorio, hacer entrega de esta distinción tan merecida como importante a nuestro querido director, amigo y hermano Maurice Ferre.
Thank you, Carlos Sanchez Besain and the Inter-American Institute for Democracy's Board of Directors. Please, those members of the board, raise so that we can give you a round of applause. Armando. Thank you. Daniela Padron is one of the most talented music artists that has come to the Gateway to enrich our musical tradition with the sounds of Latin America, which she interprets with the artistry of a classical music performer. Daniela has prepared tonight a very special piece for Maurice Ferre, Preciosa, by Rafael Hernández Marín, the Puerto Rican composer. Preciosa brings together the cultural backgrounds that prevail in Maurice Ferre's life, that of Cuba and that of Puerto Rico. Daniela, please. The Inter-American Institute for Democracy is very grateful to the sponsoring institutions for this event, the PINTA agency in the person of Michael Valdez-Fauli, and the United Alien Artists Foundation in the person of Chairwoman Olga Ortiz Mera. Olga, please. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Mayor Raúl Valdez-Fauli perhaps is one of the oldest companions of Maurice Ferre in bringing the gateway concept to fruition. Mayor Valdez-Fauli has treasured throughout this journey inspirational anecdotes and lessons that will not only help us value Maurice Ferre's work, but also will give us a insight into his generous heart. Mayor Valdez-Fauli, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Good. Maurice's career is an example to all of us. An example to all of us because when he came here in the 1940s, Miami had 1 million people, and it was that big a city. We think of Miami, we keep on refugees, now distinguished citizens. We think of Miami as not being here in the 50s, 60s, but Miami was here, and it had 1 million plus people, and but it was a very, very provincial place. It shut down in April, May. It opened in October, November for the tourist season. Cubans came to Miami at the time, but the shop, or because it was fashionable to say, I'm going to Miami on Aerovia school this weekend. Maurice studied architectural engineering, and since very, very young, he dedicated his life to public service. He served in the Florida House at a time which makes us proud to have had representatives such as what we had at the time. He was a commissioner in Miami from 67 to 70, and he was mayor from 73 to 85, as we've heard, providing an example of leadership, commitment, dedication. His vision, being mayor of Miami, and it is, I can tell you, it's not easy to be mayor. It's public safety, administration, garbage pickup, roads, traffic, whatever it is. But you also have to be a visionary, and Maurice had this in... Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Maurice had this in spades. He not only internationalized Miami, the banking center, the Bayfront Park, the internationalization of Miami. And today, I submit to you, Miami is one of the most fascinating cities in the United States because of Maurice in part. Today, Miami-Dade County, 53% of the people who live here were born outside the United States. Not outside Florida, not outside Miami-Dade County, outside the United States. And that's thanks to Maurice, and it's a community that works. It is a community at peace with itself. And in my city in Coral Gables, more than 50% were born outside the United States. Maurice has always been a visionary, as I said, and he is an example of, in Plato's dialogues, the philosopher king. There's something called Callipolis, and that is a beautiful city where political rule depends on knowledge. Maurice exemplified this knowledge, and we are much better for it. A philosopher king is a ruler who possesses both a love of knowledge as well as intelligence, reliability, and this I'm not so sure, a willingness to live a simple life, but he does have the others. Fairness, inclusivity. I talked to our city clerk, and Charles Hadley, you started Operation Big Boat, including African Americans in the political life of the city of Miami. Maurice also reinvented himself several times, and in a campaign in 1985, he came up, I mean, he didn't come up, but he gave a prominence that he had never had to his abuelita cubana, because the abuelita had never been in the press as much as during Maurice's campaign, but he did have an abuelita cubana. And I have
to finish a story about a meeting at the Mutiny Hotel. I don't know if you remember the Mutiny Hotel, but it was a restaurant. I used to go there a lot, but then it also was a highly interesting hotel for people who did not want to be seen with couples that were not their spouses. And Maurice had to have a private meeting to see which candidate to support in a local city of Miami election, and he didn't want to be seen. There were other hotels, but in November there was some festival going on or some boat show or something, and he and others hired a room at the Mutiny Hotel, the Singapore room. The Singapore room didn't have any chairs. They didn't know this before they hired the room, but it had tigers on the walls, and it had elephant trunks, and it had all sorts of things, tusks on the wall, and the only place to sit was, they had a big bathtub next to the bed, so these 6 or 7 gentlemen in coat and ties sat around the bathtub with their feet inside the bathtub. And they ordered room service. When the person came in with the room service, the Cokes and the coffees and whatever, and saw these 6 or 7 coat and tie gentlemen with their feet inside the bathtub, the only thing I can say is I wish he had taken a picture so that I would have sold it to Maurice for millions of dollars. That would have been the end of Maurice's political career. Maurice, we're very, very proud to honor you. I am proud to be your friend, and all of the people here are your greatest admirers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you, Mayor Valdez-Fauli, for a very touching description of the journey companion and friend that has treasured with you the notion that for Miami, the best is yet to come. And now, I ask you to give a round of applause to our honoree, Maurice Ferre, who will give an appreciation note to all of you.
I think I have it on now, right? Does it work?
It's on.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to sleep at my home tonight, is to recognize my absolutely fantastic wife and the Ferre family. Would you please stand up? Now, I want you to notice that you got a bigger applause than I did. And it's well deserved, because you are, without any question, my star and my anchor, which is what I always say every Christmas Day. I also want to tell you how proud I am of my grandchildren, and I would like my grandchildren and great-grandchildren comes next, Mercedes. My grandchildren and Jose Javier Rodriguez, who is Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez of the Florida Senate, and Sonia is here, and I know that Maria Mercedes is here, and Jose Alberto. I don't see any of my other grandchildren here. Okay, would you please stand up, please? And Mimi. And my other rock star of my family is my daughter Mimi, who is here. And thank you, Mimi. Her sister is traveling and missed the connection, so she's just getting to the airport right now, so she obviously will miss this. Her other brother, Maurice, is in the hospital with a minor situation, and Carlos is up in Boston. Jose Luis is up in Washington, D.C., I think trying to console his wife for her day job. Alejandro, don't get too upset. Secondly, I would like to thank my good friend Raúl Valdez-Fauli, Carlos Alberto Montaner, and Carlos Sanchez Berzain, and very especially Guillermo Lustó, who's my professor at the Flasco Master's Program at FIU, and who came up from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Thank you, and the Board of Directors of the Inter-American Institute for Democracy for this recognition. Thank you very much. I also want to welcome my friend Joe Carollo and the other elected officials that are here, and of course, all of you, my extended family. But I want to make one correction, and only one, Raul. It was my abuelito, not my abuelita. My abuelito was Antonio Ferre Bacallao, and every time I get up and shave in the morning, I see him in the mirror. And I say, who is this? He said, well, it looks a little bit like Jose Abreu. Jose, would you stand up so they can see the reason why? Jose Abreu is a good friend, and I thank him and all of you, my good friends that are here. Ted Hollow, it's an honor to have you, I think you are a little bit older than me, not much, a little bit older than me, but none of you came into Miami for the first time through the Pan American Terminal in Coconut Grove, where later on I sat in a bench similar to this as mayor of the city of Miami for 12 years. And none of you have had the experience in seeing Miami change and morph from one Miami to the other Miami to the other Miami in the past 70 years. I'm 82 years old. Actually, I could say in the last 78 years, because I came here when I was 4 years old. I'm very grateful for your presence here tonight. Being a Puerto Rican and with a Cuban grandfather and 3 Puerto Rican grandparents, married to a Venezuelan whose 6 children were respectively married to 2 Nicaraguans, a Peruvian, a Colombian, and with 4 grandchildren who married Cuban Americans and a Spaniard. I can't think of anybody who has served, as Carlos Alberto said, in public service, who has more connections with more Spanish-speaking countries than me. And I think that is one accurate description of me. I'm currently writing a book about the Ferre family, and to write this book, I go back to the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century, to a little town called La Motte-Saint-Honoré, which is where the Ferres are from. And for 6 generations, I write in my book, that the Ferres have been wanderers in the Caribbean, because we've gone from Cuba to Puerto Rico to Venezuela to the Dominican Republic to Panama, which is not in the Caribbean but Central America close enough, to Miami, which is not technically in the Caribbean, but it is right smack in the heart of the Caribbean. My service as mayor of Miami, in my opinion, resulted in 3 distinct things that happened in Miami during this time. One was the changing of a medium-sized municipal area that had then, and has now, by the way, 75% of the people that live in Miami live in single-family homes. So it is not a highly urbanized area as many, as some American cities are. But I think one of the important things that occurred in those years that Joe Carollo and I served together in the commission is that Miami changed from having a tax base that was 65% paid for by homeowners to a tax base that was 65% paid for by the commercial sector. Now, that has changed. In other words, a year or two after I left, it changed. I don't think it had anything to do with me, but the fact is that a few years after I left City Hall, it reverted back to its dependency on the housing taxes, ad valorem taxes on houses, and that's where it is today, by the way. Right now, currently, over 65% of the ad valorem taxes collected by the City of Miami is collected on the residential part. But I think that was an important thing because by developing the downtown, Coconut Grove, and the Brickell Avenue area, we increased the tax base thanks to the work of Tibor Hollow, and he's the real visionary in this town, who understood what was happening and could happen and that did happen. And what of course occurred is as Miami went vertical, the tax base went up, and so we're able to afford the kind of police department and fire department and the other things that America Arroyo and others in the past and in the future will push, such as our tremendous need for housing. And Joe, I commend you for your dedication in that particular area. The second thing that I think marked my presence was not only the Latinization of Miami, but I think as important, and perhaps more important, was the Americanization of all of these Hispanic people, many that are here. I looked around the room to see if I was going to speak in English or in Spanish, and I only see three faces of people that I think, I don't know for sure, that do not speak Spanish in this room, but the rest of you do speak Spanish. And I think that's notable, because what occurred in Miami was, in my opinion, was the democratization of how the city of Miami functioned. I was, in 1974, I decided that the city of Miami, whose police department was over 95% Anglo-Saxon, the African Americans who served in the city of Miami Police Department had a separate unit. They weren't even housed in the same police building. They were completely separate. That, of course, changed, but not much else changed. And what really got me upset a few months after I was elected mayor of Miami was seeing on television police dogs that were being released and sicked on teenagers in Coconut Grove. And that upset me so much that we had a series of public hearings which ended up in the resignation not only of the police chief at the time, Chief Garmeyer, but eventually Mel Reese retired after 13 years of service. And so I was the first mayor in the United States that blew the whistle, if you will, on what was happening in the city of Miami. And because of that, in 1981, the Justice Department signed a consent decree. And that consent decree has been functioning for the last 37 years. As a consequence of that, the police department today reflects, in its makeup, reflects the community that it serves. And there are not many major police departments in the United States that can say that, and especially in a place which, as you know, and as has been mentioned so prominently here, the majority of the people in Miami were actually not born in the United States. And so when a police department reflects the people it serves, you get a different dynamic. But that's not only true of the police department, it's true of all of the employees of the city of Miami, and it's becoming also true of county government. That consent decree has been, which is now a preferred way to solve these type of confrontations as we've had between police and our black citizens. The preferred way of solving these problems is with a consent decree. Well, the first and the oldest consent decree in the United States was the city of Miami. And that consent decree is really, in my opinion, greatly responsible for the democratization in personnel configurations that to solve this ongoing problem that still afflicts the United States. Lastly, and to close, I think my contribution was towards the recognition in Florida of a north-south view of the world. You know, as long as Western history has been recorded, we have always seen, all of us and our ancestors, have seen the world in terms of east-west. And I think it's been very difficult, and it continues to be very difficult, to have the world focus on north-south problems. Well, I think in Miami, especially in the late 70s and in the early 80s, for those 4 or 5 years, what occurred was really an amazing phenomenon. Of course, I was not responsible for the Cuban exile community coming here, but the tragedy of Fidel Castro in Cuba really was the great blessing and benefit to Miami, because without any question, that's when this community began to morph and change into the butterfly. It went from the caterpillar stage to the butterfly stage that it has now been in for some time. The Cubanization of Miami that started in 61 and is still going on, even though the Cuban community is the minority of the Hispanic community. I'm sorry, is the majority of the Hispanic community, but it does not make up the majority of the community in Miami, since it is slightly less than half of the Hispanic population in Miami-Dade County. But the English-only movement and other xenophobic movements that, in my opinion, have culminated in the election of Donald Trump because of this extreme xenophobia that we see throughout the country, I think it's been partly answered here in Miami. And I challenge any of you, most of you that are here are Cuban American or married to Cuban Americans, that you take any member of the 4th or 5th generation of the Cuban American community who started, and if you get to the 4th generation and we're just beginning to get into the 5th generation, I challenge you to show me how many of those kids in high school or in grade school really speak Spanish. I mean, speak Spanish, understand Spanish, and can read and write Spanish. And I would suggest to you that very, very few. But that's not strange. That's exactly what happened with the Polish community. That's what happened with the Germans. That's what happened with the Scandinavians and the Italians as they integrated. Because the point is that, yes, Miami has been Latinized and Cubanized, but the Hispanic community has also been Americanized. And I think out of that comes a wonderful metamorphosis that I think is the future of the United States and is serving us very well. The impact that it has, not only in language and medicine and science and government, but it's also had an impact in the electoral process. Because if you go back for the last 25 or 30 years, all of the governors and presidents that have been elected in the state of Florida won by much more than 1%. And in the case of Governor Rick Scott, he won by 0.8%. President Trump won by 1.6%. Barack Obama won by 1.4%. So that why did that happen? How can Barack Obama be elected President of the United States by winning Florida? Or how can Marco Rubio, a Cuban American who really didn't have that much background to become a U.S. senator, became a U.S. senator and one of the youngest U.S. senators that we've ever had? So I think that this was all captured and culminated by by the King of Spain. And I would remind you, Raul, that you were the mayor of Coral Gables when this happened. You had just been elected mayor. He came, the King of Spain came to Coral Gables. We had a reception. He had a reception
At the Biltmore.
at the Biltmore, but then there was a reception at the council's residence in
Right.
Coral Gables. And the king stood up and said, as you quoted before, and this is the exact quote, "I am amazed," said the king, "that Miami has become the virtual capital of Latin America without having any of its institutions." And that was really a recognition, not that the Cuban American community or the Hispanic community or Greater Miami or all of us that speak Spanish had arrived. I think it's a recognition that the United States really is a lot deeper, more profound country than many people want to give it credit for. But just because we have Hispanic American mayors in Coral Gables and in Miami and Dade County, and people of color are serving in important positions in government throughout the United States, but particularly in Miami-Dade County, does not mean that we have achieved a kumbaya society. And by that I mean, and I really do it in a petition by asking you that in Miami's faith-based civic and government organizations, that we must continue to help our city, our state, and our nation as a whole realize this American dream. Again, my thanks to the hosts for having put this gathering together. I humbly accept your recognition on behalf of Mercedes and myself and all of the Ferre family, and indeed all of us who live in the United States of America, who dream, we all jointly here dream the American dream in Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. We have heard the words of wisdom that have inspired us through our journey as residents of the city of Miami and through our quest for the American dream. Now we're going to envelope these words of wisdom in the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. Daniela Padron is going to perform the prelude. Daniela, please. Thank you, Daniela. I think you have successfully highlighted the generosity of Maurice Ferre's heart and the firmness of his beliefs with this music. Let's now join the Ferre family and Mayor Valdez Fauli and the Board of Directors of Inter-American Institute for Democracy in a vin d'honneur, which is offered for Maurice. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being friends of Maurice.